Hello everybody and welcome from beautiful Chiang Rai, Thailand. I'm here on a short holiday and I thought I'm gonna use this opportunity to talk to you about the growth of this channel over the last couple of weeks and months, and a couple of feedbacks that I got that got me thinking as well about how to how to publicly think about international relations, and what to share and what not online. So, and this one of the most fundamental questions to me in general about any kind of political thought, which is, what if I'm wrong? What if I got it wrong? What if the world is actually very different from the way that I imagine it to be? What if anyone who's followed this channel knows that I do believe that there are reasons why the Ukraine war happened. I do not condone it. I do not think that Vladimir Putin and Russia should have invaded, but I do think, just as John Mearsheimer, that this war is very much explainable, and that actually a lot of people did, if not predict it, they warned that it could happen. And then, sure enough, a lot of bad things happen, and NATO tries to make Ukraine a member, and Ukraine tries to become a member of NATO, and then a war happens. And war happens, Russia invades, clearly, utterly, right? And I don't think that this is a misrepresentation, and I don't think I am being a Putin puppet for saying something like that. But what if I'm wrong? What if this is actually not what's happening? What if Putin really just one morning woke up and got the crazy idea of invading Ukraine and doing that because he is evil? What if he's just really actually the second coming of Hitler, and I got it wrong, and the liberals or the neocons got it right, and you actually have to fight evil? How would I know? Because, when it comes to political thought, really the most fundamental issue is that from our own analysis, from the things that we believe how the world works, we are all rational beings, but we are condemned to believe that our own judgment is right. We cannot escape from ourselves. So how to deal with that? And I don't really know. But broadcasting my views of the world and my ideas to you, there is a responsibility, at least, to check on how to proceed with this public analysis of world affairs, right? And I want to talk about this also in the light of some of the recent criticism I got. One I got from a Swiss historian, a brilliant historian, by the way, one that I admire very much for the analysis that he has been doing on the Second World War and other instances of Swiss neutrality and so on. And he got very cross with me, very, very cross, for several of my videos. The one about the Tucker Carlson interview, but also a couple of initiatives that I'm involved in Switzerland on Swiss neutrality. He views the world very differently from me. And he says that what I'm doing is I'm supporting the Russian aggression and Russia's war on Ukraine. And while that criticism doesn't sting me too much, because it just has to do with a very different type of analysis, with a different belief about what's happening. We really disagree on some of the fundamentals of what this war is about, and who is primarily responsible for it, and how it should be reacted to. I can live with that. But I got a second criticism from a couple of friends who told me that, look, you've crossed the line with a couple of the videos. One certainly about Navalny. I think that's the one that irked my friends the most, that who said that, look, whatever your analysis about the war in Ukraine is, that's fine, but you cannot downplay the horrible death of Mr. Navalny and try to create any kind of equivalence with political prisoners in the West, or like with the death of Gonzalo Lira. That would be downplaying it. That would mean that you are justifying the death of Mr. Navalny. And I don't believe that I'm doing that. I do condemn the fact that Mr. Navalny died in prison. Nobody should die in prison. No political dissident, for sure. We don't know what the cause of death is. We just know that the West is like now has been in a frenzy, right? As I said in that video. But my friends told me that you're too far on the side of Mr. Putin. You're too far on the side of Russia with this kind of analysis and trying to equate what happened to Mr. Navalny to what is happening to Julian Assange, because actually I don't know. Apparently my friends seem to believe that Mr. Assange is in prison for a whole different set of reasons, and that you cannot equate what's happening to Julian Assange with what happened to Mr. Navalny. And I don't know. It surprised me. I don't agree with that criticism, but when you get criticized from some of your best friends, that's a moment when you need to take a break and actually ask yourself what you're doing, because maybe you get it wrong. And by you I mean myself, of course, naturally, right? So how do we deal with that? And the answer is, I don't know. The answer is maybe just this. It's just try to be as intellectually honest as possible about your own limitations and the limitations of what you can know. I cannot know what really happened to Alexei Navalny. I cannot know whether or not it is fair to equate what happened to Navalny with what's happening to Julian Assange. I can only try to publicly think about this with you and give you my viewpoint of what is happening and try to explain why that is. And then the rest is up to you. Everybody watching, right? I mean, one thing is really, really, really important, and that is nobody is infallible. Everybody makes mistakes. That includes me, that includes you, that includes Vladimir Putin, that includes Joe Biden, that includes Xi Jinping. Everybody makes mistakes. The question is how we deal with them, and how we in this situation where we are surrounded by propaganda, surrounded by people who try to make us believe things, how do we come up with a proper judgment? And the answer to that, in my view, is that nobody can come up with a judgment for you. You have to do that yourself. And sometimes people ask me, so what do you read? What kind of sources do you trust? And the answer to that one is I don't trust anyone. I don't trust any source, and I don't trust any one of my friends. Not because I think that they're bad or mean or anything, or that they lie to me because they want to lie to me, but because there's nobody, there's no newspaper, there's no magazine, there's no TV show, there's no friend who can give me the entire truth and everything that there's to know. There's always limits to the knowledge of people and to the depth of an article and to the questions in an interview, right? We only get bits and pieces. The big question is the source that I'm getting something from when I watch something. Is that source biased or not, or how biased is it? I mean, everybody is biased to a certain degree. And I don't think even the news media, even CNN and so on, I don't think that they lie, the news anchors and so on, I don't think that they lie intentionally. I think they lie, or they give you half-truths or untruths because they believe in them. Because, that's the biggest danger, right? People who tell you something and they believe in the thing that they tell you, and the thing that in the end turns out to have been untrue, to have been wrong. And then a lot of people, especially in the news media, then have this nonchalant kind of attitude toward, oh, let's just ignore that happened. Well, so be it. And then you jump from one issue to the next, and you're in this constant pace, right? To go from one issue to the next, and you never have time to reflect. You never really have time to go back to the beliefs that you held a couple of weeks ago. And even though people then try to point it out, especially here on YouTube, right? They try to point out how many times with the Iraq war, or with the wars in Libya, and with all of the lies that were fed to us about Russiagate and so on, people try to point that out, but the news media never gets to the point, or rarely gets to the point where they have to admit any kind of wrongdoing. And then you're already in the next thing. You're already in the presidential election 2024, and you're already in the next set of A says this and B says that, and into this kind of divisive politics. And you're asked to make up your mind, and actually to hold some beliefs about what's really going on. And if you don't hold the right beliefs, then some people call you a conspiracy theorist, or a Putin apologist, or a whatnot. The only way out here is really up for each one of us to make up our minds, and also to decide what we want to believe, and how we then want to make sense out of all of that, right? And we must at some point also choose pieces of information that we ignore, and we must choose pieces of information that we choose not to believe, that we just say that can't be, or I refuse to believe in the veracity of this one, and I exclude it from my worldview. And that is fine. That is the job that we have to do as thinking citizens of this of these societies, right? In the US, in Europe, Japan, Thailand. We all need to take bits and pieces of information from different sources, and then judge for ourselves what we make sense out of it, right? We have to do this analytical work. And with this channel, and with this kind of analysis that I'm offering, and the interviews that I'm offering, all I try to do is to offer more viewpoints and spice it up with my own viewpoint, right? Because I do believe that I'm right, even though I might be wrong. And that's very important for you to know, you know. What I'm telling you might be wrong, not because I'm lying to you intentionally, but because I might be getting things wrong. And you must always keep that in mind. You must keep that in mind when you watch anything. This person might be wrong, so I should probably not take everything they're saying at face value. So the good old being critical. And the biggest danger, apart from being wrong, the other big danger that there is the things that nobody can tell you, and the things that you don't know. There's this matrix that you can make, this 2x2, of things you know and things you don't know. And then the things you know, and the things that you don't know that you don't know. And the most dangerous ones, the most dangerous things, or the most dangerous blind spot is always the things that you don't know that you don't know them. So, like, you know how you do know that you probably know that you don't know particle physics. I mean, most of you, except for the particle physicists, who I admire very much. But apart from the particle physicists, I mean, most of us are aware that we don't know particle physics. And that's something we know that we don't know. But then there is an entire, just the good old blind spots, right? The things that we are just not aware of. And once somebody tells us these things, they change the way that we view historical events, or that we view political action. And I think that is something that we ought to work on. We ought to be aware of as many details of history and of political activities as possible, in order to figure them into our analysis about the world affairs. So for instance, I do think that a lot of the narrative about the Russia-Ukraine war hinges upon ignoring everything that happened between, let's say, since the year 2000 up until 2022, since 2007, since the Munich Security Conference 2007 until 2022, and even the 8 years before the war. I mean, when the war already was happening in the Donbass, right? After 2014, a lot of the analysis of people who say that it is Vladimir Putin who's an imperialist and he wants to recreate the Soviet Union, a lot of that hinges upon just ignoring that there were 8 years when the entire political approach of Russia was to reach their goals through the Minsk Accords, right? And through the Minsk process to get to where they wanted to be, and that didn't work. And then things happened, and by today we know with almost certainty that the idea of Vladimir Putin in February 2022 was to invade Ukraine quickly and drive Zelensky and the Ukrainians to the negotiating table, and then negotiate a neutrality agreement for Ukraine, which almost succeeded, and then it failed. End of March, Boris Johnson, so on. You know what I'm talking about. And that was a big miscalculation, right, from the side of the Russians. And then the war transformed into this bloody, horrible trench warfare that we've been seeing for the last 2 years. But that kind of analysis, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's right. It might be wrong. I just don't think it is wrong. But a lot of the counter arguments, they depend upon forgetting the things that happened before 2022, just as with the war in Gaza and between Israel and Palestine. A lot depends upon just forgetting that there were 75 years before the 7th of October, right? Or even 100 years. So all I want to say with that is, don't believe anyone. Distrust, not because people are dishonest, but because people might get things wrong. And do analysis yourself. Listen to the opinions of people you think who are honest and who have good insights. But at the end of the day, everybody might be wrong. And in 100 years, history books might remember these days under the Thai sun very differently from the way that we're experiencing them today. So with this said, thank you very much for your support for this channel and for the interviews and for sticking around. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.